From WNDU, your breaking news and weather authority, this is News Center 16 at 6.
Good evening, I'm Maureen McFadden. We continue to follow breaking news out of Elkhart after a 22-year-old man shot and killed two people inside Martin's supermarket. Terry is leading our coverage live from Elkhart. So Terry, so many details to go through as this investigation moves forward tonight.
Yeah, Mo, the investigation is very much in the early stages, but already a lot of information has been gathered so far, and we're starting to put the pieces together. Mark Peterson, senior reporter, joins us now. And Mark, figuring out what happened in this Martin's behind us, store number 17 on Bristol Street, has been pretty easy so far. Trying to figure out why it happened, that's going to be the hard part. And Mark, do we have any inkling at this point of a motive?
Would be all speculation, and there's even, frankly, very little of that. Police have reviewed the surveillance tapes from the store. While they do include plenty of pictures, it was remarked more than once. No audio's included, so they can see actually the gunman threatening some of the store employees. They don't know exactly what he said, exact nature of those threats. The video does apparently show Bear entering the store about a half hour before he ever fired a shot. Perhaps he used some of that extra time to have some second thoughts. The video shows him walking around the aisles and occasionally texting and talking on his cell phone.
I wouldn't say that it was well planned, but it was obviously thought out. He took his time. You know, I think he might have been hesitant, but he was at the store, and whether he was, you know, watching people or picking out people, we'll never know. No, we have not determined a motive. As I mentioned before, things have kind of swung back and forth. As I last reported, we didn't believe that there was any connection between the shooter and one of the female victims. However, some information has now come in from other parts of the state that might not be true. There might be some relationship.
Because there's not a police officer in this building that wouldn't give his life to have stopped what happened last night to those two innocent victims. We cannot lose sight of the commitment of folks dressed like me all around us today.
So not only has something like this happened again, this time it happened in our very own backyard. You see the attention that it drew. I counted 17 cameras again at the press conference today. The superintendent of the Indiana State Police making the trip up from Indianapolis to be here in Elkhart today, bringing word from the governor that the state will use all the resources it needs to use to make sure this investigation is done properly.
And Mark, I know the superintendent was particularly ubiquitous in his praise of Elkhart police for, you know, preventing further damage and death here. There were some pretty close calls, and in fact, the Elkhart Police Department pretty much Johnny on the spot with the manager of this Martin store, right?
This could have been a hostage situation when police arrived. As a matter of fact, they say that the manager was being held at gunpoint by the gunman, forced to his knees. That's when the officers come in the front door. It distracts the gunman's attention. The manager took note of that and used that opportunity to run and get away, and the rest, you know how it went.
Yeah, and the video showing the manager on his knees in a prayer position and Bear flailing his gun wildly. Thank goodness for the Elkhart Police Department showing up when they did.
Timing's everything. Yeah.
All right, Mark Peterson, and we are learning more about this gunman, 22-year-old Sean Bear of Elkhart. They were saying that he was a regular at this place. He lived with his folks in a neighborhood nearby here. Tricia Hart has been doing some digging today, and Tricia, you uncovered some fairly disturbing stuff about Mr. Bear's past.
That's right, Terry. And when you look at his criminal record, besides his personal Facebook page, he has a handful of convictions, some for drugs, some for theft, and a couple of other criminal warrants out there. In 2009, in fact, he was arrested for possession of an illegal substance. Then in 2010, he was sentenced to jail for stealing from the Martin supermarket. Not this location, but the one over on Jackson Boulevard in Elkhart. According to The Truth, they confirmed that records ordered Bear to obtain an addiction assessment after that arrest and an order of commitment at Oaklawn Psychiatric Center. Oaklawn is located down in Goshen. Now, Bear's Facebook page shows images and quotes from infamous serial killers. His family, I went to ask them to get a little bit more information about Bear. They declined to comment, saying this is a personal matter.
We have been to his house. The subject was living with his parents. We had a consent to search of the house. Some items of evidentiary value were recovered from the house, and have been processed.
What's their reaction? What did his parents say?
It's like any parent. I mean, you don't ever want to think of your own child being involved with something like that. So, you know, the initial shock of obviously somebody knocking on your door and telling you that your son's dead, how would you feel?
And Terry, I reached out to Bear's brother today. He said that he didn't really have much to comment, although he did add that he didn't want the personal opinions of other people affecting the truth in this matter, but he didn't elaborate more on that issue.
Okay, and there was a drug conviction here in his past. Is there any indication from police or any other sources that perhaps Bear was under the influence of some type of narcotic or something else when he went in there? Because anybody who goes in and shoots two people, something's not right.
Well, at this stage in the game, it's really early on in the investigation. Toxicology reports have to come out on Bear's body still, so we won't know until a little farther down the line if he was under the influence. But once again, if you go back to that Facebook page, there's some really damning information on there. You have threats of razor blades, a lot of rants on there, those graphic images of serial killers and deaths. It's a lot to consider, and so a lot of people were posting on our Facebook page too that this doesn't necessarily seem surprising based on his past.
Yeah, some pretty gruesome stuff on there. All right, Tricia Hart, thank you very much. And we do have two victims to this, two young women, one 20 years old and one 44 years old. The 44-year-old, a mother. Crystal Dykes, 20 years old. She was a stalker at the store. She was the first victim of Bear. And Rochelle Gottfried, 44 years old. She was a customer there. She was simply checking out when it appears Bear shot her dead, and we found out that she is a mother and that her son, Joe, plays basketball for IUSB, was in Illinois last night. He had a game there, and she was killed while he was out of state. And of course, our thoughts and prayers are with the Gottfried family as well as the Dykes family. Megan Hickey joins us now, and you have been on the trail of the victims here. It's a very sad story. Two beautiful women cut down in the primes of their lives, and you spoke to Dykes' former boyfriend, and even though they were no longer together, he had nothing but high praise for her, and he's just devastated.
Exactly. I spoke to Kyle Barnett, who's a Mishawaka man, who said that the two dated for about 2 years on and off, and at one point lived together, so he knew her pretty well. He said that she had just started working at this Martin's behind me. They'd actually had a falling out recently, so they weren't speaking, and he just keeps playing that last conversation over and over in his mind, wishing that he could have said things differently. And the man, he says that 20-year-old Crystal Dykes had attended Elkhart Central, the same high school that shooter Sean Bear attended. He said she was a lover of music, an avid concert goer, and a supporter of many local bands. Police say she was the first to die at the hands of last night's shooter. Her friends and family are still learning to cope with the news.
At 3 o'clock this morning, my brother called me. I was asleep. Crystal was shot. And at that point, it was just kind of, I didn't really know what to feel. She was beautiful, kind-hearted. She loved children. She was adamant about children.
And of course, that connection between Sean Bear and Crystal Dykes is still up in the air. Of course, Sean did attend Elkhart Central for some period of time, so still a lot of questions surrounding whether there is a connection or not.
And Crystal, I'm told, was a very giving person in life, and I understand she is a giving person in death as well.
Exactly. We learned on Facebook from a relative of Crystal that she actually donated her organs. So while she was taken clearly far too soon, she might be saving dozens of lives in the aftermath. So I guess a silver lining, if there is one, to this tragedy.
Absolutely. All right, Megan, thank you very much. And Maureen, we're going to stay here through the rest of this half hour, and we'll check back with you at the end of the newscast. That'll do it now from the Martins on East Bristol.
All right, thanks a lot, Terry. Well, News Center 16's Barbara Harrington was at the scene of the shooting all night and into the morning and joins us now in the studio. So, Barbara, tell us what was happening when you first arrived at the scene last night.
Well, Mo, when we got there, it was clear that police did have the situation under control, but there was this overwhelming feeling of uncertainty, and of course fear as people outside of the crime scene, friends and family of people inside, they were waiting to find out what exactly had happened. Now, there was a large perimeter set up, basically spanning the store's entire parking lot, and that's where family and friends of people who were inside the store during that shooting congregated, waiting for any word from police. Now, that wait especially difficult for people who hadn't heard from their loved ones. Even those who had made contact with them had very little information about how bad this shooting was, aside from what they were told by witnesses.
She told me that she heard what sounded like gunshots, and everybody around her was telling her that they heard gunshots. Obviously, I was afraid. I said a quick prayer.
One of our employees also is a Martin's employee, and she's very devastated. She's a teenager. She's very devastated by this and very concerned about the coworkers she cannot get a hold of.
And I'm told the staff at this Martin's store are very close-knit. We all know when we go into a Martin's, very friendly. So they're all taking this very hard. A lot of them texting and calling each other last night to try and track down people who are missing. And of course, Martin's is offering counseling for employees who do need it.
And the woman in your interview talked about the teenagers, and Martin's has long hired a lot of high school and college kids and worked around their schedules.
Jobs.
Yeah, exactly. And let's hope they take advantage of the counseling. Do we know when that store is going to reopen?
You know, police have said this is a very extensive crime scene that they're going to have to go through, collect evidence, spanned basically one end of the store to the next. We're told that the two victims were found about 10 to 12 miles apart.
Just incredible.
Absolutely devastating.
Okay, Barbara, thanks a lot. And Martin's has released a statement about the shootings, thanking the community for their prayers and support during this tragedy. President and CEO Rob Martle says the entire Martin's family is saddened by this tragedy. We will be offering counseling services to employees today and for as long as necessary. Our thoughts and prayers go out to the families involved and the entire community. Additionally, we would like to thank everyone in the community for your thoughts and prayers. They went on to thank authorities for their quick action and professionalism. And stay with News Center 16 on air and online as we continue to follow the tragedy in Elkhart. We will have more on the tragedy later in the show. Well, parents with students at a PHM middle school got a notice of a possible security threat today. Just after 12:30, a student found a threatening message in the boys' bathroom at Schmucker Middle School in Mishawaka. He immediately reported it to a teacher. According to school officials, the message is considered a low-level threat, but it was not revealed what the message said. However, a school resource officer has been at the school all day long. Parents were notified about the threat with the district's direct messaging system via text, email, or phone message. The cold case suspect for the 1988 murder of Teresa Burns was supposed to make an appearance in court today, but it was canceled after he acted up in jail and never made it to the courtroom. 43-year-old Philip Jeans was arrested in December on charges of murder for the 1988 death of Burns, who was found shot in her home. His first court appearance last week was postponed until today. It has been again postponed until February 2nd. Jeans is being held in the St. Joseph County Jail. Indiana held its State of the State address earlier this week, and now it's Michigan's turn. Governor Rick Snyder will deliver his fourth State of the State address tonight. He's expected to speak on many different issues, including the $971 million windfall the state has and possible tax cuts. Snyder will be on during a special joint session of the legislature in the Michigan Capitol at 7 p.m. The address will be streamed online, and we'll have a link to it on our website. Just click on the big red bar.
Tracking inconvenient weather where you live. Storm Team 16 is your weather authority.
And as expected, temperatures have warmed up to the low 30s in parts of Michiana, including South Bend, Bridgman, LaPorte, also 32 degrees down south in Rochester and Winnemac. Everybody else in the mid to upper 20s at this point. There's our South Bend Notre Dame sky view. And we kind of see the visibility go down, and then it improves, and then it goes down. That's kind of these waves of snow that are coming in. It's 30 degrees right now. You can see the winds are south to southwesterly at 14 miles per hour. There's 16 Doppler max, and you can see those waves coming through. In the middle of those, it's snowing pretty good typically with lower visibilities. In between, though, you can see it doesn't snow much at all. So the roads are definitely going to stay slick as we head through the evening hours. Here's what the future looks like with 6Pm Future Track. So be careful out there if you're going to be out on the roads. You can see this next cold front sweeping in, so it'll stay on the mild side this evening, but by morning, much colder air starting to come in. Now, the latest Future Track is keeping that secondary system we've been talking about to the south over central Indiana, so we'll be watching that one just in case, but lake effect is a possibility again later on tomorrow and into tomorrow evening, as you can see there. That whole system moves away, and then a more potent system starts to come into the northern plains. And you can see Future Track is, as of 1 p.m. Saturday, keeping it dry here, and that's what we've been expecting. But in the afternoon, there's that chance of some snow. Now, I will say this, Future Track not impressed with this now. Last night it was. All the other computer models are impressed with this one, giving us several inches of snow Saturday afternoon and Saturday evening. So it will totally depend on the track of that area of low pressure, which we'll be watching for you. Here's my Storm Team 16 forecast for all of Michiana for tonight. Occasional light snow, another inch or so likely, low temperature down to 8. Could be 2 in some areas. There's a 7-day forecast, and you can see a couple of yellow days there for Friday and again on Saturday. The snow showers tomorrow will taper off, and then that better chance for some accumulating snow Saturday afternoon, Saturday evening. Looking dry on Sunday, high 29. Martin Luther King Day dry, 24. And then more snow and more cold, kind of typical of this winter. Yes. Even colder air coming by the end of January, though.
Okay, thanks a lot, Mike. Well, kids in Mishawaka got a special treat today. Hear why these students were allowed to skip class this morning, coming up. Welcome back to some hopeful news we could all use today, an event that celebrates kids who do their homework. Today, students from Beeger Elementary School got the chance to skip class and go ice skating with their friends at Merrifield Park. The rewards of ice skating was for the students who did well in their classes and did their homework. Time now for our 6Pm Buddy Check on this, the 16th of January. Today, we're reminding you to do a self-breast exam and get a mammogram if it's time. Both are important steps in the fight against breast cancer. 6Pm Buddy Check is sponsored by the Women's Task Force of St. Joseph Regional Medical Center. For more information, including how to sign up for monthly email reminders, just head to WNDU.com/6Pm Buddy Check. Well, Notre Dame drops to 1-3 in ACC play. Once again, the Irish had their chance, but couldn't get it done last night. Jeff has another look. Stay tuned.
News Center 16 Sports with Jeff Jeffers.
You don't have to view the world through blue and gold glasses to think the Irish men's hoops team could be 4-0 in the ACC. But reality is that Notre Dame is 1-3 after letting another one slip away last night. Started great for the Irish. Pat Connaughton from the outside fires and scores. Notre Dame was on its game. Great pass from Eric Atkins. Notre Dame claims a 9-point lead at halftime, but second half, Maryland goes inside and wins the battle of the offensive boards. That was key. Mike Bray has seen enough of the physical play. He gets teed up, and Maryland takes advantage, getting 4 points after the technical. The Irish fall to the Terps at College Park last night by 8, 74-66. After the game, Mike talked about the loss.
But I thought where they really got us and made their run and kind of put us away was on the offensive board. They got second shots. They got them in the first half, but they didn't convert them. They converted all of them in the second half. And between offensive rebounds, turnovers, and then when we were trying to hang around, we couldn't make 2 free throws in a row. We kept going 1 for 2. You're just not going to win on the road like that. So
the Irish back at home Sunday evening as His Eminence Digger Phelps will be inducted into the Pavilion's Ring of Honor as the Irish take on Virginia Tech. Muffet Squad on the road at Pittsburgh tonight. The Irish 15-0, ranked second in the nation. They've dominated the Panthers over the years, so Notre Dame looks to keep it rolling tonight in the Steel City.
I think the veterans understand that. I mean, they know they've got to be ready. I think it's the rest of the team that's still learning. You know, they're still young. We're so young in all the other spots. So really, we need to get our starters ready. They need to prepare the rest of the team. But we need to treat it like a home game. We need to play the same way on the road that we do at home.
And former Notre Dame long snapper J.J. Jansen of the Carolina Panthers will be headed to the Pro Bowl. He's one of 6 Panthers to make the team. Gotta love those long snappers.
Oh, yeah.
They're the most important position on the field.
All right, thanks, Jeff. Well, the community continues to talk and react to the tragedy in Elkhart last night. We'll head back out live to get the latest with Terry after the break. We are continuing to follow the tragedy in Elkhart. Terry is out live in Elkhart. So, Terry, where does the investigation stand right now?
Well, Maureen, the investigation stands right now. We're trying to figure out why a 22-year-old man would go inside a Martin's store, this Martin's store along East Bristol, and murder 2 women. We may never know for sure. As Sergeant Trent Smith of the Indiana State Police said this morning, the answer may have died when Elkhart police ended Sean Baer's reign of terror in his life. One thing we do know, blood was spilled in the least likely of places, a neighborhood Martin's. As I said last night, Mo, if it can happen at Martin's, it can happen anywhere. So hold your loved ones tonight and be grateful you still have them. And pray for everyone in the city with a heart tonight.
Yeah, a really tough one, Terry, and we're still questioning whether this shooter might have known one of these people.
Well, that is there is a connection in that they were Facebook friends with 2 mutual people. That being one of the victims, the 20-year-old Miss Dykes who was killed, and Sean Baer. But we may never know for sure. Again, with Sean Baer dead, the answers we need may be 6 feet in the ground. So they're going to do their best to find a connection, but right now we just don't know for sure. Mo.
All right, Terry, live in Elkhart, thank you. And of course, we'll continue to follow this online and on air, this tragedy in Elkhart. And we'll have much more at 11. Thank you for joining us tonight.